Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first of all, we're going to talk about the statements that were made by the Russians, by the Ukrainians and by the United States of America regarding the results of talks that took place on the territory of Saudi Arabia on the topic of a ceasefire on the territory of the Black Sea. The statements are very interesting, and you know that all statements are completely different. Yes, there are lots of common parts, lots of common things, but there are lots of details, and we see that for example, the Russian statement has very important difference in comparison with the Ukrainian statement. So let's discuss them in details, and first let's start with the Russians. The Kremlin has published a statement following consultations with the United States in the Saudi Arabia key points. In accordance with the agreement between the presidents of Russia and the United States, the Russian and American sides agreed to ensure the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative, which includes ensuring the safety of navigation in the Black Sea, the non-use of force, and the prevention of the use of commercial vessels for military purposes, while organizing appropriate control measures by inspecting such vessels. So the most important part is that Russia and the United States agreed to develop measures to implement the agreement between the presidents of two countries on a ban on strikes on energy facilities in Russia and Ukraine for a period of 30 days starting from March 18, 2025, with the possibility of extending and withdrawing from the agreement in the event of non-compliance by one of the parties. So probably this is the most important paragraph of this statement, and when talking about the Ukrainian side, they made their own statement regarding the talks, and they have completely different paragraph regarding this part of agreement. So now let's discuss the Ukrainian statement. And when talking about the Ukrainians, basically they haven't stated anything about the terms, and they haven't stated anything when exactly this ceasefire on the energy facilities start. Later, Zelensky gave his own clarification, and Zelensky, for example, stated that a ceasefire in the Black Sea and strikes on energy could come into effect immediately after the White House releases a statement. That was stated by Zelensky. Defense Minister Umerov asked the American side when the agreements could come into force, and they believe that the implementation could occur immediately after the US officially issues statements, Zelensky said. And later, the same evening after Zelensky made all those statements, the United States of America published their own version, their own understanding of the talks that took place on the territory of Saudi Arabia. White House statement following Russia-US meeting in Saudi Arabia key points. The United States and Russia agreed to ensure safe navigation. The United States will help Russia restore access to the global market for agricultural and fertilizer exports. The parties agreed to develop measures to implement the agreement between Presidents Trump and Putin to ban strikes on energy facilities. The United States and Russia welcome initiative from the third countries to support the implementation of energy and maritime agreements. The United States and Russia will continue to work to achieve a strong and lasting peace. So as you can see, when talking about the United States of America, they also didn't say us even a single date. But the Ukrainians, but the Americans reported the parties agreed to develop measures to implement the agreement between President Trump and Putin. So what's exactly all these things about? If you remember, on the 18th of March of 2025, there was a phone call between the President of the Russian Federation and the President of the United States of America. And during that call, parties confirmed and agreed to start ceasefire immediately. According to information we have, Donald Trump proposed Putin to begin ceasefire immediately on the 18th of March of 2025 that should last for 30 days. And if you remember, Putin confirmed and agreed to start a ceasefire period of time on the energy facilities. So basically, when talking about the Russians, their ceasefire period of time started on the 18th 18th of March. But I'll remind you that since the 18th of March, at the same evening, first of all, at the same evening, Donald Trump called to Zelensky as well, and he also proposed him to start a ceasefire period of time, to ceasefire on energy facilities. And according to information we have, Zelensky confirmed that he is ready, and he confirmed that he gave appropriate orders to stop attacking the Russian energy facilities. But since the 18th of March of 2025 till 25th of March of 2025, the Ukrainians had carried out the significant number of attacks on the Russian energy facilities. For example, in this video, basically a day after ceasefire was established, but according to the Russians and the Americans, the Ukrainians destroyed the gas transportation system on the territory of the Sumy region. Furthermore, during the same period of time, the Ukrainians carried out several attacks in the southern part of the Russian Federation, and as a result of those attacks, they managed to destroy and damage the significant number of oil facilities, oil refineries, gas transportation systems, and oil transportation systems. And we have a certain report from the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation that confirms. So basically, since the 18th of March till the 25th of March of 2025, the Ukrainians, despite the fact Zelensky announced the ceasefire on the energy facilities, the Ukrainians didn't follow this ceasefire period of time. And now, of course, this is very important question and very important issue. Who is telling the lie or who is telling the truth? And when exactly this ceasefire should start, on the 18th of March or on the 25th of March, according to Zelensky. But I would like to tell you that both sides are telling the truth. Both sides are going to follow their own calendar and their own timings. So when talking about the Russians, their ceasefire, 30-day ceasefire period of time, started according to Kremlin, according to Putin, on the 18th of March of 2025. And if we add additional 30 days, this means that the Russian ceasefire period of time on the energy facilities will be finished by the 17th of April of 2025. When talking about the Ukrainian side, due to the fact that the Ukrainians continued bombing and attacking the Russian energy facilities between the 18th of March and the 25th of March, this means that their ceasefire will be prolonged for another 7 days. So the Ukrainian ceasefire period of time will be finished by the 24th of April of 2025. So basically, there's going to be a gap between two ceasefire periods of the Russian Federation and of Ukraine, when the Russians will be out of the ceasefire period agreement, and the Russians will be in complete power, and they will have complete power and force and complete right to attack Ukraine significantly with missiles and drones, and basically to destroy the entire energy facility of the armed force of Ukraine without any consequences from the United States of America. And this is the price Zelensky is going to pay for his attacks on the Russian energy facility between the 18th of March and the 25th of March. So this is the reality, and this is exactly what Zelensky is going to use to break the negotiation process, because Zelensky, for example, stated that I will ask Trump for weapons and new sanctions against Russia if Moscow violates the ceasefire. The situation at the front is not bad, is not so bad. So Zelensky is saying that, according to him and according to Ukrainian understanding of the situation, that because the Americans published the statements just on the 25th of March, so that means that the 26th of March is the first day of this ceasefire, and they don't care what the Russians were doing since the 18th of March till the 25th of March. They don't care about this. So they're saying that if the Russians attack Ukrainians' energy facilities in the period of time between the 18th of April of 2025 till the 25th of April of 2025, then the Ukrainians will consider this as a break of the negotiation process, as a break of ceasefire, and they will demand the United States of America to increase sanctions and to give more weapons. And we believe that the European countries will probably support Zelensky in his let's say ideas. But we need to understand one important thing, that the statement that was made by the Russians regarding the 18th of March and the beginning of this cease period of time most likely was confirmed with the United States of America. Because we need to understand that on the 18th of March, when Donald Trump called Putin, most likely he asked Putin to start this ceasefire period of time immediately. And when the negotiations, when talks in Saudi Arabia started, most likely the Americans proposed the Russians to begin this ceasefire on the 26th of March, but the Russians refused, saying that Trump, it was your idea to start this process on the 18th of March, and it is not our fault and it is not our problem that you haven't managed to force Zelensky to start the same period of time at the same date. We followed our word and we will continue, because if we start this ceasefire on the 26th of March, this is going to mean that Ukrainians will have just 30 days ceasefire and we, the Russians, will have 37 days ceasefire, which obviously is not so good for the negotiations and talks. And we need to have the common position and the common situation for both, for the Russians and for the Ukrainians. And most likely the United States of America, let's say, accepted this position of the Russians, and most likely if the Russians begin bombing and attacking the Ukrainians and their energy facilities during the 18th of April and the 25th of April of 2025, the United States of America will reject the demands of Ukrainians to increase sanctions and to provide them more weapons. So this is the price for Zelensky's attack during the 18th, between the 18th of March and the 25th of March of 2025. But we believe that the Russians maybe will not attack Ukraine energy facilities, but obviously we understand that for this ceasefire during these 7 days, the Russians will ask US to pay for this, maybe with lifting with another sanction list, or maybe with adding additional bank to SWIFT or something like this. But obviously this is going to be very interesting, because both sides have mechanism and have the way how to break this ceasefire, and it's going to be very interesting, obviously. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, because we have a lot of very interesting updates. And first let's talk about the Suja direction, where the Russians during the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, managed to improve their positions. According to different sources, the Russians ended the settlement by the name of Veselovka. This information this morning was confirmed by neutral mappers. Based on this report, we have made small adjustments on map. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to establish complete control over Gogolevka. At least different sources say that the Russians are there, but when talking about different flags with videos or videos that can confirm the Russian presence there, we don't have anything. The only thing we have is like the second day in a row when we receive a video where we can't see even a single Ukrainian soldier. Maybe by saying that there are no Ukrainians, the Russians are trying to tell us that this construction is under complete Russian control. We don't know for sure. But as for now, the situation is like this. We still keep this territory as a contested area. At the same time, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the west of the village of Milovoy, and now we are coming to conclusion that the Russians are trying to advance in the direction of the settlement of Oleshnya. The Ukrainian sources published a video how they were bombing and attacking the Russians in this part of to the west of Milovoy. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map in the Russian favor. So this is the situation here. Furthermore, this information was also confirmed by notes pro-Ukrainian sources, by pro-Ukrainian mappers, Deep State. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Belgorod direction. Today we got official list from the Russians about the brigades and battalions and forces and units of the armored forces of Ukraine that are currently involved in the Belgorod offensive operation. From the Ukrainian side, we can see the 22nd Mechanized Brigade, the 17th Heavy Mechanized Brigade, the 47th Mechanized Brigade, the 61st Mechanized Brigade, and several assault battalions, the 225th, the 24th Assault Battalion, and the battalion of former prisoners, 200 with the number of 225. As for the previous 24 hours, Deep State, the pro-Ukrainian source also updated their map, but they haven't colored these territories area under complete Ukrainian control. They just increased the gray zone by trying to tell us that there are still very heavy clashes between the Russians and between the Ukrainians, and it's still unknown what exactly is happening there and how the situation is going to be finished. When talking about the Russians, of course, they are saying and they continue telling us that every single attack, every single attempt from the Ukrainian side was repelled by the Russians. The Ukrainians they suffer significant losses here, and sooner or later they will be forced to fall back. Anyway, let's wait and see, of course, what is going to be next. Now let's move to the northern Kupiansk direction. Today we have restored control over the western part of the settlement of Dvorichne. This territory used to be considered as a contested area, and these changes of contested area we got from neutral mappers on the 20th of March. So on the 20th of March, the neutral mappers have adjusted their maps in Ukrainian favor in the most western part of Dvorichne without any proofs, without any geolocations. And now on the 26th of March, the same mappers adjusted this territory back in the Russian favor. So that's why we have restored this territory under completely Russian control, because nobody managed to provide us any proofs that indeed the Ukrainians entered the western part of the settlement. Now let's move further. Let's discuss the situation in the area of possible general battle. The Russians are pushing in the Serebryanka forest, trying to get as close as possible to the Seversky Donetsk river. You know that Seversky Donetsk river was a key river of the military company of 2022. It seems that everything basically started with the river of Seversky Donetsk, and now we see that the Russians are approaching this river once again in 2025, and we see that it seems that the special military operation is going to be finished at the same area where everything started. Everything started along the river of Seversky Donetsk, and now we see that everything is about to be finished at the same area. Now let's move to the city of Donetsk, where the Russians continue improving their positions and continue forcing the Ukrainians to fall back from the area of the city. Today we got a video where we can see how the Ukrainians were after withdrawing the Russians in the most northwestern part of the Zaporizhia district. In this video we can see the Ukrainians that were bombing the Russian positions in this, let's say, red square, and based on this video we have adjusted the map in the Russian favor. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the settlement of Alexandropol, despite the fact that lots of the Russian resources reported that the settlement of Alexandropol was taken by the Russians. We still continue receiving updates of how the Russians cleared this territory with FPV drones, which means that there are still very heavy clashes and that there are still some pockets of Ukrainian resistance or something like this. Now let's move further. As for the South Donetsk direction, during the previous 24 hours we haven't received anything special, just regular activities, but we are waiting for additional updates and very important updates in the next 12 hours. Now let's discuss the situation in the Zaporizhia direction. Today the map was adjusted. As you can see, today both pro-Ukrainian sources and neutral sources reported that the Russians managed to maintain their lines and their logistic between the villages of Lapkova, Petsikhatki, Stepova, Mali Sherbaki. The Russians managed to improve their position significantly, as you can see. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the Ukrainian side, how they were attacking the Russian abandoned vehicles in this area, and we came to conclusion that the Russians most likely managed to improve their position significantly. The Russians managed to create a very powerful foothold in this area to dig in deeper, and most likely Ukrainians currently have no chances to force the Russians to fall back. Now it's the question where the Russians are planning to move further. And that's it for the short video. Military summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.